back in 1974, it was the fall of 1974, Masatoshi Nakayama, who at that time was the chief instructor of the Nihon Karate Kyokai, or the Japan Karate Association, one of the major Shotokan organizations in the world, really the major Shotokan organization in the world. He was coming and he was going to conduct a Dan exam, and I was going to test. I started training in 1970 and actually very quickly got to be a brown belt. It took me a year and a half to reach brown belt, and then I was a brown belt for ever, it seemed. And during the summer of 1974, I lived at the dojo, I swear. I think I was probably there 15 or 20 hours a week, just every day. I would hop on my bike, I would ride from where I lived in the suburbs to downtown Minneapolis, and I would train. So that fall, 1974, I was a senior in high school, and everybody knew that I was taking my black belt test. And it was actually a time when, you know, to be a black belt was considered, well, there weren't 8-year-old black belts, let's put it that way. There was not this sort of industry creating black belts and where black belts don't mean anything other than you signed a contract. And so I was very stoked, and everyone was very excited for me. Do good, they said, and went and took the test. And afterwards, people said to me, "Oh, you did great. You know, I'm sure you passed." And I was pretty hopeful. We had then a banquet. It was held at a Japanese restaurant, and it was really nice, actually. And while we were there, they announced the results of the test. I didn't pass, which was really disappointing. I felt really terrible, especially when I had to go back the next day to school. How'd you do? Did you pass? Did you pass? No, I didn't pass. I didn't pass. Now, my sensei back then, a guy named Robert Fisaro, a very fine Shotokan practitioner, he used to say, if you fail a black belt test, it means more work. If you pass a black belt test, it means more work. So I just went back to the dojo and just kept training. Even though I was pretty convinced at that point that it was hopeless, I would never get to be a black belt, but I just kept training. Oh gosh, it was a few months later, it was January, mid or late January, 1975. And I remember I was working on the kata called basai, specifically basai dai. And there's a movement in the kata, and all of a sudden, I understood something about how the body moves, you know, about rotation and timing that I'd not gotten before. And I could tell, I could feel in my body that it was right. And I could also feel this sort of like, wow, I'm onto something here. Well, it was shortly after that, I literally had like just gotten this insight into physical performance. And what happened was they put up a poster that said that Okazaki Sensei was going to be there in March, I think it was the 9th of March. He was going to come, and he was going to conduct a Dan exam, and there was no way that I could be ready. I mean, I had worked all summer to test with Nakayama and had failed, and now I was getting just a couple of weeks' notice. I think just not even 6 weeks notice that there was going to be another test. There was no way I could get ready in time, but I decided I'd take the test anyway. And I determined that this one thing, I just wanted this new thing I'd figured out in the kata, you know, how to move. I thought, you know, if I can just do that new thing in the test, then I'll be happy, I'll be satisfied. That'll be a good test for me. It won't matter that I'm not going to pass. And I showed up. I didn't actually tell anybody that I was testing that day. I didn't tell anybody. I didn't even tell my family. Nobody knew. I just went to the dojo and I took the test. When people asked me later, do you think you passed? Do you think you passed? I said, no, but maybe next time, you know, because I was really encouraged. I felt like I was on my way. That's the test I passed. Now, there's a lot of lessons you can draw from that. A lot of lessons I've drawn from that too. But here's maybe one of the most important lessons for me. After I passed that test, I got my bright, shiny new black belt, and I put it on, and I went out on the floor, and I started training. And I realized that I had just moved from being the best brown belt in the place to the worst shodan in the place. Turns out, if you fail a Dan exam, it means more work. If you pass one, really, it means more work. I'm Chris Thomas, and These are reflections from the MasterClass. Thanks for watching. Now, go train.